Ready? Yep. Terrified of it.
Dom here from Essential RC. Thanks for tuning in for another flight test. This might look familiar to you if you're subscribed to the channel. This is the Dancing Wings Hobby Windrunner Discus Launch Glider, or DLG. Now, why is it called a Discus Launch Glider? That's because it doesn't have power on the front, no propeller, no motor. What you do is you launch it into the air by putting your two fingers around the peg and you whip it into the air. Launch it into the air like that, and what you're hoping to do is maximize your flight time by finding warm air, thermals that are rising up from the ground that you can take advantage of and gain height and cruise around and glide. And you can get very long flight times just by doing that with something like this because it is so light. Now, the version that we reviewed earlier in the year was the kit version. So in the box you get all the wood parts, a roll of covering film, and you have to assemble it, and that takes several evenings. But this is the ARF version, the almost ready to fly version, where all of the wings, the wing halves and the tail section is all built up and already covered for you. So there's a lot less to do, and I built this in about 2 hours. Really easy to do. Now, here is my assembly guide for this ARF version of the Windrunner.
So this is the box that the Windrunner ARF arrives in. Take all the contents out of the box, and these are all the components. Wings and fuselage and tail feathers all built up and covered, as I said earlier. And you've got the yellow bag should you want to take the wing off and take it down the flying field like that. You've got 2 servos, some stickers at the top left, and the very good instructions. So full disclosure here, the wings did arrive with a little bit of damage, which may seem unfortunate, but since we've had the kit version, I would recognise this as the one weakness of this kit. These are the little ply pieces that click into the front of the fuselage. And actually, I think they're not really strong enough, so I would have done a modification, an enhancement anyway, to make sure it's stronger, and I'll come back to that. But I've fed this back to Banggood and Dancing Wings to make sure they do their packaging better in future. So first step in the instructions is to hinge the rudder and the elevator, but in my case they were already hinged, so I didn't need to do that, even though the mylar hinges were provided. So I'm just keeping those as spares should the existing hinges tear. But if you find that it is not hinged, it's a very quick thing to do, just to put the mylar hinge in both sides, push close together, make sure that the hinge is centered in the middle of the hinge line, and then use very thin Sino or super glue to wick into that mylar hinge and let it dry. Next step is to put this T-piece in place on the horizontal stabilizer, and this screws through to the fuselage mount on the other side. Then we need to slide the carbon tube onto the vertical stabilizer. You'll see that the balsa is pre-cut for this on the vertical stabilizer, and there's a bit of strengthening ply in there as well. So cut the film, but you may find, I think you'll definitely find that you'll need to cut away some of the balsa to allow the carbon tube to slide onto this middle section of balsa, and then use some super glue or epoxy to keep it in place. Slide 4 of the carbon wire guides onto the carbon tube. Do not glue these in place yet, we do that later. And then insert the carbon tube into the back of the fuselage through the 2 holes and use some epoxy to glue that in place. Notice that I'm slightly over the F5 former in the fuselage, that's fine. Next step is to insert the carbon wing joiner into the wing and then slide the other wing onto that wing joiner as well. If you look at this image, you'll see the position of the wing joiner, how it slightly overlaps the rib in each wing. Now I opted to glue the 2 wing halves together and to glue that joiner in place as well so that it's extra strong. Can't emphasize enough that when you do quite a hard launch of a DLG, it's going to be under quite a bit of stress, so I think the wing is better if it is glued together. Now, because of that damage that I had on the leading edge inside of each wing, I took the opportunity to add something stronger. So you look at this little bit of wood here that is going to slide into the front of the fuselage, and this is going to be much stronger than the original design and able to take the forces of launching much better, I think. Next, we need to insert the short carbon rod into the wing that we're going to use for launching. So if you're right-handed, you want to insert it in the hole in the left wing. If you're left-handed, you want to put it in the hole in the right wing. Just make sure you insert it into the right one, otherwise you're going to be very disappointed the first time you go down the flying field. I recommend that you use some good epoxy to keep this in place. We need to install the 2 lengths of piano wire next. Now mine had a Z bend at one end, that is the servo end. So push these through from inside the front of the fuselage through to the back, making sure you go through the holes as I'm showing here, and then string that wire through, guide it through those wire guides, those carbon wire guides that we slid onto the carbon tube earlier. This is the servo installation. To be clear, the nose, the front of the DLG is on the right of this image. Make sure you get the orientation of the servos correct. You'll need to take the servo horns off so that you can insert the piano wire Z bends into them. You'll see, just if you look quite carefully, I had to put 2 holes in the sides of the fuselage, one on one side, one on the other, so that I could screw those horns back onto the servos. What I also recommend is that you wrap the servos in masking tape so that you are not gluing the servo directly into the fuselage, and that they will be easier to remove. Again, I recommend that you use a good epoxy to keep these servos in place, but don't use too much. This is the receiver that I'm using for this project. This is Radiomaster ER6GV Vario ELRS receiver, ELRS protocol, and it has a Vario, which is fantastic for any type of glider really, so that you can see whether you're climbing or descending when you're flying your glider. But this paired together with the Radiomaster TX16S Mark II radio is a very economical and unbeatable combination. You can see here that I have epoxied the horizontal stabilizer with the elevator onto the carbon tube, making sure that this is at 90 degrees to the vertical stabilizer and rudder, and is at 90 degrees to the fuselage as well. Very important to make sure that everything is lined up correctly at this point. Then you should find two small carbon horns to install into the rudder and the elevator. I'm showing here clearly what sides to put them into so that the correct wires will be hooked up to them. This is a good point to glue those carbon wire guides in place. Space them out equally along the carbon tube, and then just use a very little bit of super glue to keep them in place. Really do make sure you do not get any super glue near the wires themselves, because they need to be able to move freely, obviously, when the servos are moving. Then last step is to put a 90-degree bend in each of those wires. Now, to do this you need to do it in the right place, but make sure that the rudder or the elevator, whichever you're working on, is in the neutral position, and that the servo is in the neutral position, so you can work out the correct place to put that bend in the wire, so the wire goes at 90 degrees and straight through the horn, the hole in the horn, when the control surface is in the neutral position. When you've done that, put it through and then use the keeper to ensure that that 90-degree wire bend does not come out of the horn.
So with that assembly done, let's see how it flies.
Okay, first DLG launch, go for it. Woo!
Keep it tracking into wind. Yeah.
There we go. All right, first one, not bad. Woo! Oh, you turned left.
Yeah, I did that on take. Did hold that wrong. I'll tell you what, the red film looks nice with the sun going through it.
It does. Nice.
Ready?
Yep.
Terrified of it.
So thanks for watching this review of the ARF version of the DW Hobby Windrunner ARF DLG. It's a huge amount of fun to fly in the right conditions. I really urge you to give DLG flying a go because it is a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. The link for this is in the video description and the pinned comment. We'll see you soon on Essential RC.